All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Phoebe De La Paz. Oops, sorry. And I've chosen the topic Women in Islam. I think it's an important topic that we don't get to hear a lot about just because we're focused usually on things going on in our own countries or our own lives. But nevertheless, it's an important topic, especially while we're going through and studying Pakistan and their history and culture. So, this is just a basic map of the areas where Islam is practiced and the Muslim people generally practice that religion. As we can see, it's kind of stayed in the Middle East, hasn't really gone over to South or Central America. Um, but yeah, just kind of an interesting figure there. And then I'm sure most of us have a general idea of the religion Islam, but I just wanted to give a brief overview so that we kind of are on the same page when I get started. So, Islam translates to the submission to the will of God, which I think is interesting. The name of their religion focuses on basically doing everything that God says. I think that's a great reason to have it as that name. So basically, in this little bullet point list, I put together some of the important beliefs of the Islamic religion. And then on the last point, that little blue one, if you click on that, there's a little bit more information on that. But I think the most important to get from this basically is that they have very specific rules and beliefs on how life should be lived and what you need to do in your everyday life in order to be righteous, I guess is the word. So, as we're getting into the presentation, I wanted to demonstrate how women live under the Islamic rule and religion. Just a note, my presentation isn't really positive. It's kind of hard to find really positive things about that because of old traditions and cultures. So just keep in mind that not all of the things in Islam are bad, but when it comes to women, there are some bad traditions and things that don't really make sense when you've grown up in other places, but we'll look at them as objectively as we can. All right, so first, women are held to a really high standard of modesty. Basically, if a woman decides to be revealing in any way, she's basically responsible for her own purity. So if a man looks at her in a certain way and she's not covered, it's her sin and it's her fault, not the man for having the thought. It's also interesting to me that if a woman is to walk in front of any man that she might marry, she should be covered with her hijab, which means barrier. So, I mean, that could mean the man at the grocery store because ultimately she might end up marrying him. So, kind of interesting. There's a researcher he's a professor in Istanbul, Turkey, and he explains in this paragraph basically that the hijab isn't just a cover for the head and the hair, it's really a symbol of attitude, and it's just basically being virtuous and pure and having good manners. One of the heavier topics, I guess I should say, is Islam and the justice system. Women generally don't count as much as men when it comes to the justice system, especially when it comes to rape or sexual assault or basically anything that you can go before a judge. Usually a woman has to have 4 male witnesses to verify her testimony, or if the rapist is to confess. Those are like the only ways that a woman might win a rape case. Another point that's important to remember is that basically going along with that last point is that they're treated like second-class citizens. And these are teachings from their scriptures in the Quran. And just reading some of them, and men are a degree above them, speaking of women. And then it speaks about how a man can basically take advantage of a woman if she's not Muslim or if she's a slave. So basically, they're only worth something if they're under our religion or they're not worth as much to us. Another heavy topic for women in Islam is domestic abuse. Basically, a man is allowed to hit his wife for any reason. Some of those might be that she stops getting ready. She doesn't ask for permission or doesn't leave for a good enough reason. She might stop going and doing religious things as much as usual. So basically, he can beat her or he can divorce her. And I found a link that said that Pakistan was the third on the world's most dangerous countries for women, which is kind of sad that we even have to have a list of dangerous places for just women. Karo Kari is honor killings. This is something that I was pretty amazed to find out. Basically, if a woman commits a sin or anything that might be considered um, bad or look down upon, they sacrifice her as a karo kari, like an honor killing, and that will bring honor back to their family and get rid of the sin. So this happens really quite frequently, and it says that it's the cause for at least 1,000 lives of women in Pakistan each year. Polygamy isn't always a bad thing when it comes to Islam. Some women do need the support, seeing how men hold most of the power in office and work. They sometimes do need a provider. However, if a man decides to marry a woman without the other woman's knowledge, sometimes she can get left behind and he can even abandon her and pretend like they were never married and choose to live only with the new wife. Basically, that's a rundown of the major things that I learned. I had a really hard time picking and choosing what things to present in such a short amount of time, but I hope you learned something like I did. I think it's important to gain a respect for these women and for the big changes that they've made and all that they go through, and to continue to learn about other cultures and see how we can help support and uplift the world around us. Here's just briefly my sources, and thank you so much for watching.